The Phantom of Pecos Bill, the chilling tale behind the legend, whispers in the dust. If you're hearing this, you've already made a mistake. There's a story that lingers, like the whisper of wind through dry desert brush, soft at first but louder, sharper, and more desperate with each passing moment. Pecos Bill is a name you may have heard before, tossed around in legends and campfire tales, a figure of Wild West mythos, full of exaggerated feats, a symbol of impossible bravery and the untamable spirit of frontier America. But there's something much darker behind his story, something that should have stayed buried. Before I begin, I have to warn you, do not keep listening. Turn this off. Walk away. Go on with your life. Forget you even started. Because once you hear this story, once it's in your mind, the very air you breathe will change. I'm telling you this because once you know the truth about Pecos Bill, you won't just feel uneasy, you'll feel him watching. And that is the last thing you want. But since you're still here, I guess it's too late. So I'll tell you anyway. But don't say I didn't warn you. The tale of Pecos Bill isn't just a story. It's a curse. And right now you're already too close to the fire. Let's hope you can get away before it burns you. Long before the myth, before the man, there was a land, vast, dry, and suffocating, with cracks in the earth so deep they seemed to descend into the very bowels of the world. This was the Pecos Desert, a place so desolate, so wrong, that to stay there for long would warp your mind, twist your soul. It said that Pecos Bill was born into this infernal stretch of barren land, raised by the very winds that howled through the canyons, suffocating the cries of those who came before him. The locals always spoke of strange things, murmuring in hushed voices around their campfires. They said the desert had a heart, a dark, pulsing, ancient heart that beat long before the first men stepped foot upon its soil. But it wasn't until Pecos Bill came to the area that the whispers became warnings. Pecos was different. He wasn't like the others who tried to tame the land. There was something about his presence, something unnatural. His eyes were said to gleam like the sharpest obsidian, his voice was deep, almost guttural, and his smile, well, there are no words for it. He carried himself like a man who had nothing left to lose, and in the end, it would be the world that would lose everything. He came to the Pecos Desert seeking fortune, but what he found was far worse than anyone could have imagined. Pecos Bill stumbled upon something in the sand, something buried deep beneath the earth. Some say it was an old, cracked box, but others whisper it was a seal, an ancient seal crafted to keep something at bay. They say that when Bill touched it, the air thickened, and the ground itself seemed to tremble. But he didn't stop, didn't understand the gravity of what he was doing. He released the thing locked beneath the desert's scorched surface. What he freed is the very thing you should be afraid of now. For centuries, it had been trapped in the dark, waiting, but once Bill disturbed it, it was free. The creature, if it can even be called that, doesn't have a name. But it has a presence. And that presence, it lingers. It watches. It feeds on fear, pain, and confusion. It feeds on souls. Some say it's the ghost of the land itself, a thing that has been hunting for centuries, feeding on the living and turning them into its mindless followers. But no one really knows. All that is certain is that Bill, once he released it, was never the same. The whispers say he tried to leave. He tried to escape. He ran from the desert, from the presence that followed him, but the moment he left the land, it followed him. At night, he would hear the whispering wind calling his name, promising him horrors beyond imagining. When he closed his eyes, he'd see shadows stretching toward him, never-ending, hungry. And it was then, when the night became unbearable, that Bill did something that no one should ever do. He tried to make a deal with it. Bill went to the edge of the desert one last time, stood at the precipice of madness, and called out to whatever was watching him, whatever had followed him, promising that he would give anything, everything, if it would just leave him in peace. The whispers, those faint voices, told him that there was a price for peace, and that price was his soul. But even though Bill agreed, the whispers didn't stop. They only grew louder, more insistent, until they consumed him entirely. Pecos Bill was never seen again after that night. But that thing, it didn't leave. No, it stayed. It watched. And it learned how to move from person to person, passing from one victim to the next. It hunts those who venture too close, lingering at the edges of their minds. It will show itself to you in your dreams, but you will never know when it's real or just a trick of the mind. And right now, it's closer than you think. I told you to stop, but here you are, still listening. You may think that you're safe, that this story is nothing more than a terrifying tale spun to make you feel something. But no, this story, this curse, it doesn't end when you stop listening. In fact, it only begins. You've just made your first mistake. If you still don't believe me, come back. I'll tell you what happens next. But I wouldn't if I were you. the thing that follows. By now you know it's too late. You should have never kept listening. But the whispers, they've already found you, haven't they? I warned you. And now you'll learn the truth of what Pecos Bill unleashed. You'll learn what follows when a man makes a deal with something that should have never been disturbed. You'll learn why the desert never let him go and why it will never let you go either. The thing that haunts the land is no mere ghost. It is not a man, not a spirit. It is something much older, an entity that has existed since time itself began to crawl across the earth. And when Pecos Bill disturbed it, it learned to do something far more terrifying than it ever had before. It learned to move. That night when Bill stood at the edge of the desert, begging, pleading with the thing to leave him in peace, it made a promise, but not the one he wanted. No, it gave him something far worse. It would never leave him. Not in life. Not in death. And that promise wasn't just for him. It was for everyone who heard the tale. When Bill vanished from the face of the earth, the whispers began to spread. First to the nearby settlers, then to the travelers, and before long the entire region knew. But it wasn't just the story that haunted them. It was something else. The thing followed the whispers. It entered the minds of those who listened, fed on their fear, and shaped its form into something that mirrored their darkest nightmares. And with every telling, the entity grew stronger, feeding off the terror it created. It doesn't just haunt the desert anymore. It follows wherever the tale travels. If you think the land was cursed, you've only scratched the surface. No, the curse isn't in the desert. It's in the story. It came for them all. One by one, the people who dared venture too close to Pecos Bill's tale, whether they heard it from a friend, from a campfire, or even from a place like this, started to disappear. They would be there one moment, laughing, speaking, joking about the legend. And then, without warning, they were gone. Their belongings left behind, their voices no longer echoing. The only thing that remained was a deep, unnatural silence. A silence that was too heavy, too suffocating. But it wasn't just the silence that gnawed at the air, it was the presence. The thing that was there but never quite seen. The thing that moved just at the edge of your vision, the thing that whispered your name when no one else was near. The thing that was never quite out of reach. Every one of them, the ones who vanished, the ones who simply disappeared, they'd all heard the tale. And now they were part of it. Forever. Just like you are. I know what you're thinking right now. It's just a story. It's just a tale to frighten people. But that's not the truth. The truth is that the thing that followed Pecos Bill is following you now. Do you feel it? The coldness creeping into your bones? The way the shadows move just a little bit too much when your eyes aren't focused on them? The quiet whisper, barely audible, calling your name in a voice that isn't quite human? It knows you're here. There are no more safe places. You might think that if you leave the desert, if you leave the place where this all started, you'll be free. You'll escape the curse. But the curse isn't in the desert. It's in the air now. It's in your skin. It follows you like a shadow, patient, always watching. It's waiting. And just when you think you're free, when you think you've left it behind, it will come for you again. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter how far you run. It will be there waiting. Always waiting. The worst part? You'll never see it coming. You'll never know when it decides to strike. It hides in your reflection, in the corner of your vision, in the cracks of your thoughts. And when it comes for you, when it finally gets close enough to strike, it won't scream. No, it won't roar. It'll just whisper. A soft voice in your ear, one you can never escape. And it will ask you one question. Do you remember the tale? You can hear it, can't you? The whispers. They're getting closer. If you're hearing this now, if you're still listening, then I'll tell you one last thing. The entity that Pecos Bill released, the thing that has haunted the land for centuries, it's not just bound to the story. It's bound to you. You're already part of the curse. You've always been part of it. It's too late to turn back. You've made a choice tonight, one you cannot undo. You can try to ignore it, to laugh it off. But the thing is already watching, already waiting for you in the dark. And it knows your name. If you still have the courage, subscribe to this channel. You will need to know the next part. Because when it comes for you, you won't be alone. But you'll wish you were. The end? Or is it? It is only just beginning.